David Flynn is called The Temple at the Center of Time, Isaac Newton's Bible Codex Deciphered in the year 2012. It makes a correction to Isaac Newton's research, pointing to the year 2013 as the time of the end. In 2003, the Daily Telegraph in London published a front-page story declaring that according to Isaac Newton, the world would end in the year 2060. This was the first time the calculation of Newton became widely known. However, various biographers and researchers of Newton's theology had encountered it since 1991, when most of the manuscripts were released on microfilm at the Jewish National and University Library in Jerusalem. According to Flynn, in the 1660s, when Newton believed that the end of days was imminent, there seemed no reason to work out the approximate year in which it would occur. With the Great Plague and the Fire of London and the apocalyptic fervor of the times, it seemed obvious to Newton that the end time had already arrived. But over the ensuing decades of his life, Newton became interestingly aware that his convictions had been premature. Near the year 1705, when Newton was in his 60s, his concern for preventing the reputation of the same era compelled him to invest in his considerable knowledge to setting the matter of the time of the end to rest. The paper in which Newton recorded this calculation was the subject of the article in the London Daily in 2003. Very few readers understood Newton's reasoning for the date. Not being scholars of the end time, Newton wrote concerning it, "This I mention not to assert when the time of the end shall be, but to put a stop to the rash conjectures of fanciful men who are frequently predicting the time of the end, and by doing so bring sacred prophecies into discredit as often as their predictions fail. Christ comes as a thief in the night. It is not for us to know the times and seasons which God hath put into his own breast." Newton arrived at the 2060 year in a straightforward manner. He believed that the last world empire at the coming of the Antichrist would be the revived Roman Empire, a concept wholly embraced by eschatologists in modern times as well. He also believed that this had actually occurred in 800 AD through the coronation of Charlemagne by Pope Leo III as ruler of the revived Roman Empire in the West. As described by the prophet Daniel and John in Revelation, the revived Roman Empire will rule for 1 week, a period of 7 times 360 days, or 2,520 days total. In the midst of the week, at the 1,260-day period, the Antichrist will desecrate the future temple in Jerusalem. Following this day-year guideline, Newton assigned 1,260 years of the revived Roman Empire before Antichrist's desecration of the temple. This he did realizing that the rebuilding of the temple and the judgments of the Revelation did not follow the rebirth of the Roman Empire in 800 AD. None of the prophecies of the end days followed the coronation of Charlemagne as emperor of the revived Roman Empire after the 1,260, nor for a matter of any years up until Newton's day. Therefore, he established each day with a year from 800, arriving at the date of 2060. In a manuscript in the Yehuda collection, Newton was even more specific about the 2060 date. So then, the times, and half times are 42 months, or 1,260 days, or 3.5 years, reckoning 12 months to a year and 30 days to a month, as was done in the calendar of the primitive year. And all the days are of short-lived beasts being put for the years as of lived for long-lived kingdoms, the period of 1,260 days. If dated from the complete conquest of the 3 kings, the year would be 2060. But Newton's prediction of Charlemagne's revived Roman Empire starting in 800 AD and existing until the return of Christ was contradicted in 1806 when Napoleon forced the empire's dissolution. But, says Flynn, there remains a valid aspect of Newton's calculations. There is reason to believe he was correct in his assumption that there would be 1,260 years until the return of Christ at the rebirth of the Roman Empire. but the year he chose was incorrect. There is actually a better date on the founding of Rome and the methodology of Daniel's prophecy. Flynn explains that the Romans had a fixed birth date for the city of Rome and of its empire in 753 BC. It was believed that the patriarch of the city, Romulus, had marked out the boundaries for the wall of Rome in the year known as the Ab Urbe Condita, literally from the founding of the city. The Roman calendar began with the 753 BC, according to the dating of Marcus Tenerus Vario, who lived at the time of the empire itself. Because of how the prophet Daniel divided the prophetic week in half, Flynn believes the original founding date for the empire of the prophecy, Rome, would follow the pattern and be bisected there, correcting Newton's date to the year 753 BC, designates the founding of the physical Rome at 753 AD, and establishing the rebirth of spiritual Rome, counting 1,260 years forward from AD 753, one arrives at the year 2013. Yes, that's a lot of math and dates and gobbledygook, but basically they come up with the year 2013. And that has a significance because of the Mayan calendar ending in December 21st, 2012. And when that concludes, this date has raised apocalyptic fears in corners around the world. According to the Bible code, the world will end on this date due to a collision with a meteor, asteroid, or comet. Another theory, the novelty theory, claims that time itself is a fractal wave and will end abruptly in 2012. Even the popular television program X-Files speculated that colonization of the Earth by aliens would occur in December of 2012. The Mayan themselves described past visits of Quetzalcoatl, the feathered serpent, descending through a hole in the sky on a rope ladder. They believe at the end of 2012 the serpent rope will emerge again from the center of the Milky Way and Quetzalcoatl will return, heralding a new era at the start of 2013. Another version of the story has Quetzalcoatl sailing down on a winged ship, causing some to speculate that a UFO armada or mothership could descend and take up position over the Earth at that date. Besides this type of speculation, an unusual number of important events will occur beginning in 2012. NASA is predicting the next solar maximum will arrive in 2012 and will be the strongest in 50 years. At the same time, the Sun will align with the center of the Milky Way for the first time in 26,000 years, on the exact date at the end of the Mayan calendar, December 12, 2012. This will be the year when the United States and United Nations elect a new president and a new Secretary General, considered by some to be the two most powerful thrones on Earth, and the seat from which prophecy experts say the Antichrist will rule or receive power. And a well-known preacher, Jack Finimpi, says that the year 2012 and the end of the Mayan calendar could mark the return of Jesus Christ. Based on his research on the Jewish feast, Pastor Mark Blitz of El Shaddai Ministries believes this time frame between 2012 and 2015 could be prophetic and may signal the return of Christ.
The devil who deceived them was thrown into the lake of fire and sulfur where the beast and the false prophet are, and they will be tormented day and night forever and ever. I also saw the holy city, New Jerusalem, coming down out of heaven from God, prepared like a bride adorned for her husband. Then I heard a loud voice from the throne. Look, God's dwelling is with men, and he will live with them. They will be his people, and God himself will be with them, and be their God. He will wipe away every tear from their eyes. Death will exist no longer. Grief, crime, and pain will exist no longer, because the previous things have passed away.
The Revelation 13 podcast is hosted by Mike Hopwood and is a podcast dedicated to the study of end-time events, news events, and ancient mysteries.